Number 10. Reverend Bruce Wayne. Reverend Bruce isn't particularly scary to begin with, but the world he comes from and the fight he fights is definitely scary. This is a version of Batman who isn't just taking up the mantle to fight his parents' killers and rid Gotham of crime, but instead is attempting to fight against a whole political and societal system. In the Elseworlds story Batman Holy Terror, the course of history is changed somewhat so that America is basically still part of the Commonwealth. As such, it turns out that the seemingly random mugging and murder of Bruce's parents was not actually so random, and was actually a government hit that was later made to look like a mugging gone wrong. When Reverend Bruce finds out about this, he dons a demon costume that once belonged to his father Thomas and sets out to investigate. He also goes on to find out about government-run human experiments and an alien whom they captured, raised, and later killed with green rocks when he became too hard to control. Poor would-be Superman. Number 9. Gods and Monsters Batman. This version of Batman is not Bruce Wayne, but is instead Kirk Langstrom. In this reality, there is no Bruce Wayne to take up the mantle, and so Kirk ends up with the name himself. Not because he was inspired by a bat smashing through a window, of course, but because he is kind of actually part vampire bat. Kirk was a brilliant scientist who was working on a cure for lymphoma. He eventually figured out how to create this cure using bat saliva and nanotech to strengthen his experimental treatment. However, while it succeeded in curing his cancer, it also turned Kirk into a pseudo-vampire. While he remains a hero and typically only ingests artificially created plasma or even animals' blood, which can also help him to survive, he has also been known to feed on criminals from time to time. He's like, these criminals, nah, I gotta eat, they kinda deserve it, I'm just gonna eat them. And friends, before we move on to our next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more scary alternate Batman lists, of which, let's be real, there's a lot of scary alternate Batman out there, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Spooky thumbs up. Spooky spook. Number 8. DCEU Batman, or Batfleck if you prefer. Ben Affleck's Batman from Batman vs Superman especially is a much darker figure in comparison to the comics, and kind of in comparison to a lot of other Batmen that have been on the big screen. This is a version of the hero who has decided that he is willing to kill when he needs to. All in all, it seems to be implied that the death of Jason Todd is what reshaped Batman's morals here and caused him to readjust his code. Not only does he kill, but he also does something even worse in my opinion, branding some of the worst criminals that he fights against with a literal bat brand. These are the criminals that Batman has deemed to have done something completely unforgivable. And the thing is that people in prison in Gotham also know the significance of the bat brand, meaning that those who end up with one are basically marked for death. The idea here is that the inmates will carry out the death sentence that Batman has marked them with because they know that whatever this person did, it was one of the worst crimes, otherwise they wouldn't have this brand. So not only is there an extra layer of fear, but this also shows a complete disregard for human life. I mean, at least a disregard for human life when it comes to really terrible criminals. Batman wants these criminals to live in fear, and he doesn't care what happens to them in prison. In fact, he kinda hopes that they end up dead. Number 7. Batman the Silenced. One perfect spine-chilling dark multiverse tale that I have loved, which even comes with its own creepy lullaby, is the Tales from the Dark Multiverse Batman Hush. In this story we get a reimagined narrative where Batman's childhood friend, Thomas Elliot, is the one who ends up messing up Bruce's life. Tommy in his adult years allies himself with many of Gotham's villains and more usually anti-hero types after Bruce Wayne ends up in Arkham Asylum, which also was kind of part of his doing. However, Bruce isn't quite as checked out as he's been pretending to be, and he ends up escaping in order to get revenge and taking up the mantle of Batman the Silenced, an alternate version basically of Hush, and of course an alternate version of Batman. Number 6. Vampire Batman. This alternate version of Batman comes to us from the alternate Earth 43. As his moniker describes, he is a version of Bruce Wayne who transforms into a more literal version of Batman when he becomes a vampire. Batman. Get it? Cause vampire bats. Oddly enough, this is also not the only version of Batman in the multiverse that also happens to be a vampire, as you already know, because we talked about Gods and Monsters Batman as well, who's also a vampire. Despite being a vampire on Earth 43, Bruce still fights on the good side, fighting against his vampiric urges to feed on human blood. At least, Initially he fights against them. At one point Vampire Bats asks Alfred to stake him in order to prevent him from giving in to his bloodlust, after he seemingly killed the Joker by draining him of all of his blood. However, a stake through the heart doesn't actually kill Batman here, but simply leaves him in a coma. Months later, Gotham is in a pretty bad place without Batman's presence, and Alfred is forced to awaken him in hopes that Gotham will once more have a savior. Batman does go about taking out criminals, but in a very vampiric way, creating a bloodbath as his time staked and his bodily decay has resulted in the loss of his sanity. So he's there and he's killing criminals, but he's like killing criminals, and it's like a lot. Number 5. The Merciless. This alternate version of Bruce is one who ends up wielding the power of Ares in the memory of Wonder Woman. Oh yeah, and he's also the one who fought with Diana to the very end against Ares before he inevitably was kind of forced to kill her. Or forced in his eyes, but in our eyes we're like, Bruce, don't do that. Don't do it. This alternate version of Bruce Wayne, aka Batman, hails from the dark multiverse of Earth at -42 and is one of the Batman Who Laughs Dark Knights. To me, he represents Bruce's obsession with power and symbolizes what could very well happen if this was left unchecked. Bruce here loved Diana, but still ended up betraying her because he knew that she would not allow him to keep the power of Ares for himself, and that she would rather destroy such power. So he was like, I gotta hold on to the power because I'm doing great with it, so I guess I gotta kill ya. But also, he wasn't doing that great with it. Spoiler alert. Number 4. The Bruce. This alternate version of Batman comes to us from the reality belonging to Batman I Joker. Here Batman is a tyrant and a symbol who is worshipped as a god. This is not our own Bruce Wayne, by the way, but like a dystopian, almost cyberpunk future version of the character where the people of Gotham see him as their ruler and god. In fact, I don't even know if this guy's name is actually Bruce Wayne or is Bruce at all. I think he's just a person that's elected and like that's the role you play, or that seized power. The people of Gotham worship him and his mission for vengeance. The whole comic is pretty horrifying to read and reveals how even the best of heroic intentions can be perverted over time. Nothing scarier than just humanity and the way that we think things through and can like take a good idea and make it into something a lot more sinister. That's the scariest thing of them all. Well, almost. There's a few more points. Number 3. Murder Machine. Murder Machine is an alternate version of Bruce Wayne who hails from the dark multiverse reality of Earth -44. Here Bruce Wayne turns to his friend and colleague Cyborg for help, building an AI to supplement Alfred after Bruce's longtime friend, butler, and father figure is tragically murdered. However, this AI is programmed to protect Bruce at all costs, which ends up leading the Alfred Protocol, as it's named here, to take over Bruce, replacing his human body with a mechanical, indestructible, and immortal one. Turning Bruce into the murder machine, the Alfred Protocol, which Bruce is now fully merged with, also takes away Bruce's ability to feel fear or sadness. I think you know where this is going. It's not going to a good place. In the end, it labels everyone a threat to Bruce and helps him to kill all those who could potentially harm him, including the entire Justice League. Pretty bleak stuff. Number 2. Nemesis. Nemesis is probably one of the most brutal Batman alternates we've ever encountered. Probably also because he doesn't even hail from DC Comics himself, but instead is a creation of Mark Millar's, who hails from Icon Comics. Mark Millar doesn't hail from Icon Comics, but this character does. Mark Millar does many things. Well, we do have an elaborate backstory for Nemesis, which involves him also seeking vengeance for the death of his parents, but in a much more twisted way. Since his parents were actually the worst kind of wealthy folks and murderers themselves, it's never really even confirmed that this backstory is the true backstory of Nemesis. In fact, it's even implied in the story that Nemesis could actually be multiple people who just cause mayhem and death and destruction because, well, maybe they just enjoy it? The whole idea of the character and everything that he does is pretty messed up and is quite dark. Nemesis provides a much more villainous take on the idea of vigilantes and how motivation can mess you up, or alternatively, how you really don't even need motivation to become a messed up and brutal vigilante in the first place. Also power. Lots of things about power, because that's how it goes. Number 1. Batman Who Laughs. Obviously one of the darkest and scariest alternate versions of Batman out there has to be the Batman Who Laughs. This version of Batman is actually like an amalgamation of Joker and Batman, but he is ultimately an alternate of Bruce Wayne, because he is Bruce Wayne, so a little more Bruce really than Joker in the end. He used to fight crime as Batman, but one day Joker took things too far and caused Batman to snap. And not just snap internally, but externally as well, when he actually snapped Joker's neck, killing him. Joker released a special brand of Joker venom with his last breath, which Bruce breathed in. Over time, this venom made him paranoid and homicidal, and ultimately, he became the villain of the story, going so far as to kill all the members of the Bat family. Knowing they would not be able to join him, or not be willing to join him I guess I should say, well, he killed all of them at least except one. His son Damian Wayne was offered a spot at his father's side, and he ended up taking it. Batman then became the insane Batman who laughs and set out to conquer and reshape the entire multiverse. Which definitely means you're pretty scary. If you are like, I'm not just gonna take over this world, I'm gonna like go beyond that, that's a lot.
Number 10. Vampire Batman. We'll start on a Twilight note here, okay? Bruce Wayne of Earth 43 appeared in the 1992 Batman and Dracula Red Rain story written by Doug Munch with pencils by Kelly Jones. So after a group of victims met their fate in the same way with their, throats slashed and not looking great, Batman realized that he's got vampires to now deal with. Vampires led, of course, by the one and only Dracula. So Batman really goes the extra mile to get the job done here because he meets a rogue vampire named Tanya and opts to get bit. He's like, right here please, thank you. He turns himself into a vampire in order to fight Dracula. Awesome, sold. Debit, thank you. Okay, so now Batman lures these rogue vampires into the Batcave, detonates an explosion, completely dusting Wayne Manor, so now all this sunlight hits the bloodsuckers, poof, they perish, and Batman used his new wings, his actual bat wings, and then flew to fight Dracula. Bat Bruce won the fight by impaling Dracula on a broken electrical pole. Bruce wasn't looking good also. He lost a lot of blood, so he actually died, but the Batman will live forever as now a vampire, so that's good. That's a positive ending, I think. Number 9. The Batman Who Laughs. Coming from the dark multiverse, first appearing in Dark Days the Casting, created by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, comes a twisted Earth 22 version of Batman, the Batman Who Laughs. Sounds like a good time, it's actually a nightmare. The Joker here is cruel. He goes on a spree throughout Gotham, just chaos, pure chaos. He took out Jim Gordon, and then he poisoned Batman. So once Batman was able to move his body again post-poison problem, he broke the Joker's neck. But even so, the Joker was prepared for this. After the snap, he let this toxin out that infected anybody near him. So Batman now got infected. Cut to 2 days later, Batman and Superman are talking about what just happened. Then when Superman tells Bruce that a kid infected by Joker venom bit a doctor, Bruce Wayne laughs. He lets out a little laugh. But he catches himself after, and even Superman is thrown off. He's like, okay, something's not right here. So a day later, Bruce called the team to the Batcave, and he went full Omni-Man. He took out the entire team before anybody really caught on to this new personality. Weird and evil. This list is dark already. Number 8. TIMESTREAM Batman. Batman The Return of Bruce Wayne is a 6-parter written by Grant Morrison, released in 2010, and we pick up from Final Crisis issue 6 when Darkseid shot Bruce into the past. He travels throughout history, these fun crazy eras, until eventually he's back to present day Gotham City. Now the series is 6 issues, so we get 6 different types of Batman. This is like a 6-in-1 point. It's pretty juicy. So issue 1 gives us a caveman style Bruce Wayne. He meets an immortal caveman as well who becomes Vandal Savage. Issue 2, Bruce has to deal with witches. Okay. Issue 3, Batman is front and center in the high seas. Pirate Batman going head to head, of course, with Pirate Blackbeard. Enough said. Issue 4, we move to the Wild Wild West, where Bruce is a talented gunfighter, yet still he doesn't like guns and chooses not to kill. Vandal Savage returns here, but this time with the help of one Jonah Hex. Lovely. Issue 5, we find Bruce in what appears to be the 1930s, right after his parents actually died. So Bruce is taken to the hospital to recover from a gunshot from the previous Tale Out of Time, and that's when he meets a woman named Marcia. Marcia believed that Thomas Wayne actually killed his wife and then faked his own death. She was a friend of Martha's, so she was trying to get some peace of mind, trying to get to the bottom of this. So Bruce followed her to a graveyard without her knowing, and then that's when we find out she's actually a member of the Black Glove organization, and she intended on sacrificing Bruce to Barbados. She wanted immortality all along. Don't we all? Issue 6 ties everything together nicely, so if you haven't read it yet and this is piquing your interest, go check it out for yourself. Finish it off. It's a good time. And if you're enjoying this list as well so far, don't forget to share the love and hit that thumbs up. You guys rock. Thank you so much. Now back to some weird Batman alternates. Number 7. Dark Claw. Coming from the Amalgam universe where DC and Marvel combined powers, figuratively and literally, we get a Wolverine Batman double feature. First appearing in Legends of the Dark Claw issue 1 back in 1996, at just age 5, young Logan Wayne witnessed the death of his parents. So we have that Batman origin story sprinkled in to lay the foundation. Good stuff, promising stuff right there. And then Logan Wayne was then sent to live with his uncle in Canada. But after poachers ambushed his home, we have even more family members biting the bullet. So far, so sad. Afterwards, Logan Wayne enlisted in the Royal Canadian Air Force and soon after the Weapon X program. That's where the Wolverine origins really start to come in. Logan Wayne got the adamantium treatment, but it was deemed a failure in a way because Logan wasn't a mindless brute. He kept his sanity. So now we're starting to get a little bit more positive. This is good, right on. Afterwards, he was a free man. He studied criminology, forensics, martial arts, gymnastics, and all 127 major styles of combat. That mixed with the claws. Good game, dude. Good game. Number 6, Bat-Zaro. Making his first full appearance in Superman Batman issue 20, the world's worst detective and just a straight up villain, Bat-Zaro is the opposite of Batman. Morals, speech, combat, body weight, everything is opposite. So when you have a superhero like Batman who doesn't kill, tries to save the day, and solves crimes, the opposite is bound to be pretty brutal. Bat-Zaro had not one, but 2 pistols that he loved shooting around, and a chain, of course, to whack people with. And he had an upside down bat symbol to remind folks who's who. You know, in case the grinning sharp teeth wasn't enough. He idolizes Bruce Wayne though, funny enough. It's pretty weird because the origins of Bat-Zaro go way back to the Joker. See, Joker created Bat-Zaro simply because he wanted to officially kill a Batman. But when plans went south, Joker tried to fire a bullet into the Batman and Bat-Zaro jumped in the way, sacrificing his life for Batman's. Is this tragic? Yes. Is it a weird one? Absolutely. Number 5, Red Death. Coming from the Dark Multiverse on Earth 52, Dark Days the Casting, issue 1, we meet a Bruce Wayne with the same origins that we're used to. Now he eventually became a hero, yada yada yada, and he fought alongside Robin, and then the next Robin, and then the next Robin. His life was taking a harder toll on him. He was watching all these sidekicks bite the bullet, so now he was desperate to find a new power, a new way to prevent his partners from maybe, I don't know, dying. So he looked at his world's Flash, and he saw his super speed and thought to himself, you know what? I could use that Speed Force better than him. What a statement right there. So he took out every Flash villain himself, kept their advanced weapons, and then used those weapons to fight the Flash. He drove them both into the Speed Force with the Batmobile and the Cosmic Treadmill, and then he absorbed all of Barry's super speed. Now after Batman came back from said Speed Force trip, he referred to himself as Batman the Red Death, where he would then brutally kill Gotham's criminals in the blink of an eye. But here's the kicker, here's the bad part. Gets worse rather. Barry still lived inside his mind. He would beg Batman, or sorry, Red Death, to stop the killing. Imagine hearing somebody in your head. I mean, that alone is a nightmare. Number 4, Civil War Batman. Batman teaming up with Abe Lincoln. Yep, let's go. Batman the Blue, the Gray, and the Bat was released in 1993 from Elliot S. Maggin and Alan Weiss. When you need to protect the government's massive stash o' gold, who else do you call but the Caped Crusader and his horse appropriately named Apocalypse? This is a fun story because this era is just too wild to be boring. But in this Elseworld story, Abe Lincoln knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman. But it's Abe Lincoln, he can keep a secret or 2 or 3. Bruce had a bat fly in his window the night Abe's messenger arrived, so he took it as a sign and made an epic old-timey batsuit. He's accompanied by Robin, but in here he's named Redbird, and then we find out that old-timey Bruce is actually behind the whole operation this entire time. You lied to Abe Lincoln for gold? Shame. Shame. You're already rich in some universes. You don't need gold. Or maybe he's rich because he stole that gold. Number 3, Bat Baby. Making his first steps in Batman issue 147, the 600th time Batman appeared in comics, we see Bruce Wayne as a baby. So after Nails Finney and his gang made a shrink ray, they set their sights on Batman and it worked like a charm. It was only a shrink ray though. He didn't de-age mentally, which is even better almost. So now he had the same strength and aggression as a full-grown man in a toddler's body. This sounds like the worst case scenario, but Batman was kind of okay with it. He worked with what he got. He's like, okay, if people are gonna treat me as a baby, I'm just gonna dress like a baby. And then he wore a bat suit that no baby has ever worn ever. Classic Batman. Number 2, Holy Batman. Batman Holy Terror was an Elseworlds one-shot released in 1991, written by Alan Brennert. We find Reverend Bruce Wayne. How holy and fun is this? It's 1658, and in this universe, Lord Oliver Cromwell recovered from that fever and he maintained his hold on England. Later in the 20th century, Thomas Wayne, physician to ye old Gotham Town's council, was killed, same with his wife. Now James Gordon is on the case trying to get to the bottom of it, but he believes this was more than just a mugging. So he befriended young Bruce Wayne to maybe try and find some more info. Cut to 20 years later, Gordon is now Gotham Town's High Inquisitor, and Bruce is about to become a priest, and that's when Gordon finally tells Bruce the truth about his parents. He reveals that a man named Joseph Chill was behind the whole thing. The government took down one of their own. How peculiar. Priest in the sheets and bat freak in the streets. That's how we like it. And finally, coming in at number 1, The Bat. Batman Castle of the Bat was released in 1994, written by Jack C. Harris with pencils by Bo Hampton. We're really leaning into the literal bat theme on this list. I kinda love it, not gonna lie. Taking place in South Germany 1819, we get a scene similar to that in The Dark Knight. A masked highwayman robs a carriage. The passenger asks the man if he's ever heard tales of the demon who protects the land, and the highwayman scoffs, says, "Oh, that's just superstitious, I don't believe in that," and then a bat monster comes in and rips his head off. Dr. Bruce Wayne hears about this attack, and at his home, his castle rather, he tells his hunchback servant Alfredo, that the beast had attacked once again. What beast? What is he talking about? So when Bruce was a kid, his parents were killed in a carriage on a road. So Bruce and Alfredo found Thomas Wayne's brain, collected some body parts, added some electricity, and voila, now Thomas Wayne is back, and he looks like shit. Once bat fluid is added, he becomes a living nightmare of a monster, and his first plan was of course to get revenge on the same guy who killed him decades earlier. We saved the weirdest for last, that's for sure. Kicking off the list at number 10, the Devastator. There's a name right there, okay. Bruce Wayne of Earth 1 made his first appearance in Dark Days, the casting. This Batman is one of Barbados' Dark Knights. Now, he started out the usual Batman way, lost his parents, became Batman, hung out with the Justice League. He actually got along with Superman quite well. He genuinely believed in his ideals of hope. But it is Batman we're talking about. Just because he trusted him doesn't mean he wasn't always prepared. Bruce kept the Doomsday virus just in case. So when Superman did go on and become a little crazy and started killing people, Batman figured, okay, now is the time to use this thing. Bruce first used a kryptonite spear to try and do the trick, but Superman just monologued in his face. Nothing was working. So now it's Doomsday time. The Devastator was born. The virus changed Batman instantly, physically of course, but also mentally. Now he had no problem killing what used to be one of his best friends. Using kryptonite breath, Bruce weakened the god and then finished him with some Doomsday spikes. Nice dark note to start the list off. There we go. Number 9, Multiverse Bat Baby. In part 1 of this list, we of course had to mention the time Batman was shrunk down to the size of a baby, so naturally in part 2, we need more baby goodness. Dark Knights Death Metal Legends of the Dark Knights issue 1. Bruce has a plan. Now this version was planning on living a second lifetime. More crimes to solve, more risks to break, more bills to pay. The man is committed. Now he had already taken down the Joker, Riddler, Two-Face, and Scarecrow at this time, but he wanted more. After his passing, his mind was safely stored in the cyberspace, and it was then transferred into this new body waiting in the Batcave. This time seems way harder for Bruce. See, in the early issues, he just made little trousers and still continued to fight crime. It was fun, it was almost cute. Here, he was rolling downstairs. He couldn't even walk. He probably his pants, and then he just lays down and cries for the rest of the day. The best part is that he has the mind of Bruce still, so those tears just aren't baby tears. That's pure agony. Now he finally figured out, how to use his legs in life. He gets the jetpack to make up for those tiny legs, and he still goes on saving the day as the guardian of Gotham. And before we continue on with this weird list, if you want to go ahead and give us a thumbs up, that would be awesome. It helps us out so much. Thank you so much for watching. Let's get back to the video. Also, thank you for 1.1 million subscribers. That's huge. That was a nice thing to wake up to. Number 8, Red Sun Batman. Superman Red Sun was released in 2003. It earned Mark Millar an Eisner Award nomination in 2004, but he always wondered what life would be like if Superman was raised in the Soviet Union. What a fun idea. So in this story, the ship lands on a Ukrainian collective farm instead of Texas, and as for Bruce Wayne in this reality, well, his parents still end up biting the bullet, but this time it's by Stalin's police force. So his main goal was to get back at that captain of said police force, Roslov. This version of Batman, Just look at the attire. How do you not love him off the bat? He kidnapped Wonder Woman, tied her up with her own lasso, rude, and then used her to draw Red Sun Superman out. And of course, it worked like a charm. Using simulated red sunlight, he weakened Superman, locked him in a basement, ideally forever, but Wonder Woman broke free, took care of those red sun lamps, and right before Batman was about to get the beatdown of his life, he detonated a bomb in his own chest. Honestly, I think Red Sun Superman would still be a lot more painful than a chest bomb. I mean, still dark either way. Number 7, Magic Batman. Superman Batman Sorcerer Kings is a 4-parter written by Cullen Bunn, beginning with Superman Batman issue 81. On the cover we see Batman's tool belt, but this time it's made of elixirs and potions. What's the deal here? So after witches and warlocks tried to sacrifice our sun, things went south and now every electronic was literally vaporized. That means no more TikTok, sorry. The future was looking quite grim. To see Batman punch warlocks and witches in the mouth, I mean at one point he says, no more hocus pocus. In part 2, Bruce pulls out a whistle, obviously he gets mocked, and then when the Batwing arrives, it's more than useful. The Batwing being a magical dragon, of course. Number 6, Emo Batman. Back in 1999, we got to see one of the moodiest versions of Bruce Wayne. Coming from Elseworld's 80-page giant, he was one of the members of the group the Pennyworths, who was discovered and signed by Lex Luthor. This sounds funny considering the Batman we know and love, but it's still really sad. For example, Lex didn't care about the well-being of who he signed as long as they're making that moolah. And on top of that, Bruce was struggling with substance abuse problems and his last album bombed. It didn't even go gold. How sad is that? So soon after, Lex sold his record label to Darkseid Incorporated. Imagine watching Battle of the Bands and emo Bruce Wayne starts setting up shop. What a dream show. Number 5, Prohibition Batman. This alternate version of Batman first appeared in Batman Scar of the Bat, but this time it was Elliot Ness. Elliot was a federal agent, and instead of going toe-to-toe with the Joker, Elliot is now trying to bring down Al Capone. Now, of course, this takes place during the Prohibition era in Chicago, and Elliot was part of a team referred to as the Untouchables. I love this alternate version because it's real history that's being played with. Elliot Ness was a real guy who led the Untouchables in 1903. The story is a fun one-off, but Elliot does reappear later on in Teen Titans Volume 3, Issue 31. It's a brief appearance, but he's still out there. I wonder if real-life Elliot Ness ever read DC Comics back in those early days. Him and his Tommy gun reading Batman in a speakeasy? I can see it. Number 4, Batman the Silenced. The original Hush storyline by Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee introduces Bruce's childhood friend, Thomas Elliot. Out of jealousy, he tries to take down Batman using the alias Hush, but in Tales from the Dark Multiverse Batman Hush, we see a different life play out this time. When Thomas and Martha Wayne were shot that fateful night, Bruce was of course devastated, but Alfred didn't end up taking him in like normal continuity. Instead, he was taken in by those Elliots. Bruce didn't work through his trauma by fighting crime and saving lives. Instead, he grew more and more unstable from his childhood, so much so that the Elliots transferred him to a mental asylum, while Thomas Elliot grew up to take control over Wayne Industries. Horrible, what a horrible alternate reality. So once Tommy became a senator, he was able to transfer Bruce to Arkham Asylum, where Jonathan Crane would perform these operations. While in there, Alfred sent in Jack Napier as a mole to help Bruce, and Alfred also told Bruce about his parents and what really happened. So Jack was in there to help Bruce get in touch with people who can help him get payback. So he received training in every field from lunatics in Arkham Asylum. He came out talented but tainted after faking his own death. Once free, he went by the name of Batman the Silenced. Number 3, Sane Batman. We'll ride the Dark Multiverse train out a little more, taking a look now at Jean Paul Valley. The original story took place when Batman got his back by Bane in 1993. AZRAEL took over for the Bat while Bruce healed up, and then things went back to normal over time. In Tales from the Dark Multiverse Batman Nightfall, we see a world where Jean Paul Valley refused to give the cape back. They went at it at the Batcave, and instead of Bruce reclaiming the costume, he got a devastating hit to the spine. And to make matters even worse, Saint Batman kept Bruce alive, just, you know, without any body parts, of course. His physical strength is unmatched. This Batman juices. He uses venom in his suit, so he operates at a superhuman level. The ultimate backbreaker this time. Number 2, Speeding Bullets Batman. This Elseworld storyline shows us a future where Kal-El landed in Gotham and was subsequently adopted by the other Martha, Martha Wayne. The Waynes did end up meeting their fate, regardless of the fact that their newly adopted son has laser vision. He didn't realize at the time that he could fire heat rays until right after they had died. I mean, that's fair, trauma does things to the body. After this point, Super Bruce wasn't the same at all. He had the powers of a god, but the hatred of the devil. He was a conflicted man. He would repeat the line, the bullets, the bullets, the bullets, over and over again. He was mentally unstable, obviously. So he hid from the world in his mansion of solitude, and over time Bruce decided that he should use his powers and just be a hero instead of hiding. Taking up the identity of the Batman, he would patrol the streets looking for crime, but like I said, he was still a troubled guy. His version of saving the day was burning the flesh off of criminals. Number 1. Thomas Wayne. Coming from the Flashpoint storyline released in 2011, writer Jeff Johns and Andy Kubert brought us Thomas Wayne, Bruce's father, when he was actually the one to become Batman. See, in this universe, Bruce Wayne was actually the one who got shot that night in the alley. The world of Flashpoint is this altered reality that Barry accidentally ends up in, where Thomas is older, more brutal, and he's like this evil, dark Batman. And Bruce's mother, Martha, becomes so traumatized by what happens to her son that in this reality she becomes the Joker. So this Batman is very okay with using guns. In fact, he actually prefers it. Kicking off the list at number 10, we have the Murder Machine. Great name. In part 2 of this list, we mentioned the Devastator, so this time we figured we had to include Murder Machine as well. Bruce Wayne, coming from the dark multiverse, Earth 44, had the same origin with the parents getting popped and all that stuff. He became Batman, he joined the Justice League, but then when Alfred was suddenly killed in the Batcave by some goons, Bruce feels responsible. He watches the footage over and over and over again. It's haunting him. So at Alfred's funeral, Bruce asks Cyborg if he can help him create an AI Alfred. You know, to help around the house, set reminders, lock the doors, all that good stuff. Cyborg agrees and Alfred protocol is underway. Its job was to assist and protect Bruce no matter what. And he was built as a hologram, so he can use weapons and move stuff around. What could possibly go wrong? Day 1, this thing was already spreading itself around, building new bodies, and then it started to take out every criminal in Arkham Asylum. Because they were deemed as threats, of course, so Batman had to adjust a few things, rightfully so. He wanted to allow AI Alfred to have access to the Batcave system, even though Cyborg was like, hey man, that's probably a terrible idea, but you're gonna do it anyways because you're Bruce Wayne. And he did. The AI first went after Bruce's mind because he didn't trust Bruce to keep himself safe. That's so meta. Then he took away Bruce's emotion, strapped him with some advanced tech, and once everybody was deemed a threat to Batman in some way, shape, or form, chaos erupted. A lot of death. Number 9. The Bruce. Coming from the Batman I Joker storyline from the late 90s, this Batman is known simply as the Bruce, which has a nice little ring to it. I say it like that, the Bruce. Once a year, the Bruce puts on a hunt. The citizens are now allowed to fight and challenge him for the throne. It's called the Night of Blood. Great name. But they also have to fight Batman's villains first, the surgically altered and reprogrammed versions, of course. The Bruce controls them all though, that's the messed up part. He just likes this gladiator, Halloween style night. He just likes violence. Luckily, and I can't believe I'm saying this, luckily a descendant of the Joker came in and put a stop to the Bruce. And before we continue on with this list, if you want to go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, somewhere in that area, that would be great. It really helps our channel out quite a bit. You guys are the best. Thank you for your constant support. Let's keep going. Number 8, Digital Justice Batman. James Gordon II is the grandson, of course, of the Jim Gordon, and after the death of his partner Lena Schwartz, he sees some old newspaper clippings about the Batman, and he feels inspired. He feels like going through his grandfather's stuff. He's learning more, he's grieving, and then that's when he discovers that Gordon left him the Batsuit as well. Bruce Wayne's old Batsuit. How lovely. You should probably wash it twice though, just to be safe, you know? So James took over as the Batman with NetWiz Bobby Chang joining as his sidekick Robin. The two of them were recruited by the Batcom, which was a program set up specifically for this by the original Batman in order to pass along equipment and tech and all that good stuff. This is a complex online future world that we're now looking at, of course ruled by the digital Joker virus. And I thought that paperclip guy was annoying. Imagine this dude. Jeez. Number 7, Clone Batman. When Darkseid created a clone of Batman, he used it to make the world believe that Batman had died, when in reality, Darkseid actually sent Bruce back in time with his Omega beams. That's a pretty impressive trick already, but things go up a notch when that clone is revived as a Black Lantern and seeks out our remaining alive heroes. His job was to attach other rings to other heroes who have been resurrected before, but after he was done, he went back to get some beauty death sleep. In Batman and Robin issue 8, that Batman is revived using the Lazarus Pit, where he instantly attacks Dick Grayson, Batwoman. I mean, he's just going nuts at this point. He was strong too, he was really strong. The next issue, the clone took off after King Cole triggered an explosion, and then he took off and headed for Wayne Manor, where he then fought Alfred and Damian Wayne. Just going for blood right off the bat. Pun intended. Damian was tossed off the roof by crazy Batsy, but thankfully Dick got him just in time. And in issue 9, the clone lost to Batwoman and Dick. Good ending-ish. Number 6, The Doom That Came to Gotham. Written by Mike Magnolia and Richard Pace, Batman: The Doom That Came to Gotham is a 3-part Elseworld story where Batman's primary target is that of Lovecraftian monsters. Batman is in this 1920s era. He's rocking a Glock on the front cover. It's gritty, but the threat levels are cosmic. It's a fantastic blend. It's 1928. Bruce has returned home to Gotham a whole 2 decades later after his parents were killed. And he finds the city under attack from all these supernatural forces. It's wild. The way Batman handles these cosmic powerhouses, it's a ride. Even other players in the story are wild too, like Harvey Dent for example. His body started to deform after Poison Ivy touched him, and he was also chosen by Ra's al Ghul to be the living portal to Sotha's realm. Just goo into a wall of, yeah, it's just yuck. Number 5, Bat Joker. This version of Batman came to life in the New 52 Futures End storyline, also known as the Joker Borg. Remember the mayor of Halloween Town and Nightmare Before Christmas? This Bat Joker is kind of like that guy. He's got business in the front and then villain in the back. So Batman created a time-traveling device and sent Terry McGinnis, who I'll explain later on, into the past to prevent Brother Eye from being built by himself and Mr. Terrific. Batman was injured at this time, so Frankenstein took him, as well as the Joker, and then did some fun operation where the two became one cyborg. Batman's brain was literally picked apart here in order to find out where Terry McGinnis had been sent to, and then the Bat Joker was sent back in time as well to stop Terry. Bat Joker was heavily equipped though. He was loaded with super strength, so much so that this Bat Joker was amongst the strongest of the cyborgs of the end future. Number 4, Terry McGinnis. Of course we have to mention him now in case you're wondering, wait, who's this guy again? The year is 2039. Bruce Wayne had retired, but Project Cadmus director Amanda Waller was looking for a replacement for Batman, beginning with Project Batman Beyond. A major key element here was using the original Batman's blood samples left over after his fights and mix it in with some nanotech. Now we have the DNA, we just need a family to raise the kid. Amanda found the McGinnis household with Warren and Mary a perfect fit, as they were both psychologically identical to Thomas and Martha Wayne. One flu shot later, they were about to be the new parents of a new Batman. But obviously in Batman fashion, during Terry's teenage years, his father got killed, and Terry believed it was all because of the corrupt CEO, Derek Powers. So he asked for the help of the other guy part of this merger, that guy being Bruce Wayne. He didn't know anything at this point. But after a confrontation against the Joker's gang, Terry realized, oh, Bruce is the OG Batman. So Terry stole all his stuff and suited up himself as the new Batman Beyond. What an origin story. So sick. We had to include him in this list. Not so much weird. I mean, besides the whole, flu shot, now I'm alive thing. Guess we can make that weird and include it. Number 3, OWLMAN. Coming from Earth 3, making his first appearance in Justice League Volume 2, Issue 23, OWLMAN is actually not Bruce Wayne, but rather Bruce's older brother, Thomas Wayne Jr. See, instead of their parents getting shot, Thomas Wayne Jr. actually believed that they were doing such a poor job of managing their money, so he got Alfred to do it for them. He got Alfred to kill his parents, and then when young Bruce Wayne was trying to stop this horrible plan from happening, Thomas Wayne Jr. took out his own brother. He saw this as a sign of weakness. What a psycho. So with the family's wealth now, he became OWLMAN. As a Cape Crusader, Thomas was he was the worst. I mean, the guy didn't mind using deadly force, for one, he actually preferred it. And what's a hero without a sidekick? This world's Dick Grayson tagged along and joined him, but that was after OWLMAN himself killed Dick's family. So a little bit of a twisted origin there too. And of course, there was also an evil super team, the Crime Syndicate. Number 2, AZRAEL. So right after the 1993 Nightfall storyline when Batman got wrecked by Bane, his back was broken, but he decided to pass on the Batman mantle to not Dick Grayson, but instead Jean-Paul Valley, aka AZRAEL, aka Azbat. I'm gonna say this is a weird version of Batman because he's a little crazy. This run as Batman wasn't the same at all. His methods were violent, messy, and irresponsible. He was capable of defeating Bane with his new suit and stuff, so he did do a good job. He was a formidable successor in that sense, but definitely not permanent. Once Bruce did recover, he had to force Azbat to leave the position. Even the style changes were quite drastic, and honestly, kind of ugly. Dare I say it was kind of ugly. He has the blue and yellow armor, the claws, the dual mag weapons. It's cool, but it's nothing like the Cape Crusader we know and love. He's kind of like a Decepticon. I'm like, I don't really like a Hot Wheels Decepticon looking guy. Number 1, the God of knowledge. Weird, magical, wonderful, question mark? I'm not even sure what to call this one, but it's quite entertaining to say the least. The Mobius chair is the lazy boy of the galaxy. It made its first appearance in New Gods issue 1, and the chair was created by the Anti-Monitor. He gave the chair to Metron, but at one point Batman saw an opportunity of a lifetime. The chair was unused for a hot second, so Batman, king of musical chairs and problem solving, jumped on it and in turn became the god of all knowledge. How wonderful. At this point, the stakes are high. This couldn't have happened at a better time, honestly. The whole team was busy fighting Darkseid. Meanwhile, Batman's just floating in a chair in the background, figuring out the secrets of the universe, just trying not to throw up, trying to process all of this power. And that's when the Green Lantern adds a little bit of fun to this mix and tosses over his power ring. Just something to help Bruce get a grip. He puts it on Bruce's finger, power lights up the place, and he gets off the chair with a glowing lantern on his chest, right in the middle of the bat symbol. How crazy is that?